This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College. With bachelor's and associate programs, bridge semesters, and summer programs for students who learn differently. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College. Learn your way. Succeed uniquely.
It's a great disservice for some of these young folks and, older folks to be stuck at home in the basement or in unemployment lines. They have so much more talent than that. And we think that when we place these folks, they're probably going to outperform the other people that are in those internship programs because they're there to get a job at that company, and they've been working hard to get there.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. One of the major issues in living with a learning difference is finding employment as you get older, as you become an adult. And most of the time, that's not a terribly difficult problem. In fact, some of the most successful leaders of business, industry, the arts are people who have ADHD, dyslexia, other kinds of learning differences. In fact, they are some of our leaders and some of the most famous people in the country and in the world. However, some people with these learning differences really struggle as they get out of school or even in school or can't do school at all. And traditionally, these people have sort of been cast aside. They can't find a job. They end up unemployed or struggling with drugs. Some of them get into trouble with the law, end up in jail. They're homeless. They get into terribly, terribly difficult situations. And what is, always bothered me, and really I've made a career in trying to do something about, is that these folks typically have a lot of talent. And what a waste to take a group of people who are very talented and are unable to do anything with their talent, and in fact suffer terrible consequences often. And it's just a tremendous problem that society by and large ignores. This is not a powerful voting bloc, but it should be, because it is a group of people that could contribute a tremendous amount to our society. This is a colossal waste of talent. And this is really what I've devoted a great deal of my life to solving this problem, to bring these people who are struggling, who haven't found how to make something out of their talent. And one of the great needs has always been some sort of structured situation that would offer them the help they need without putting them in a situation where they're set up to fail, which is what most schools do, and even trade schools can do. Because these folks, the ones with the severe versions of these conditions, they just recoil when they're put in a situation where they're expected to show up at a certain time, where they're expected to deliver a paper in a certain format, where they're expected to deliver a product where there's a certain authority structure that they're expected to work within. And you may say, well, they should just get used to it. That's the way the world is. Well, again, that's setting them up to fail. And fail they will if you expect them to, if you set them up to. And so about 5 years ago, two very visionary and dedicated men got together and came up with an idea to create a lab, if you will, geared toward giving these young men and women an opportunity to develop their talents. And they knew they were tackling a difficult problem, but they also knew they wanted to do it. They were ready to face the difficulty. They knew it would be an uphill climb. They knew a lot about business, and they had built successful businesses themselves, and they were ready, now that they were in middle age, to take on the problems of growing a business, particularly a business that was going to struggle from the get-go. I have one of these men on the show today. He was on the show a couple of years ago, and we invited him back. His name is Rick Fiery. Perfect name for someone working with this group of people, because they are indeed a fiery group. And he runs an operation called Inventive Labs in Amesbury, Massachusetts. He joins me now to talk about the new program he's created. It's been in operation for a number of years, but he's added to it this year. He will tell us about it, how it's operating, and how you can get involved if you know a young person who you think would be suitable for it, what it entails. And I'm really very glad to have Rick. What he's doing is unique and tremendously needed, and really, honestly, is a program that will bring lives back from a dark and dismal place and set them on a course toward potentially tremendous success and contributing to the world. So welcome to Distraction, Rick Fiery.
Thanks, Ned. Great intro, as usual. So I guess, should I dive in and just give you a little bit of the history of Inventive Labs?
Yeah,
I think it's relevant.
Tell us about it, absolutely.
So both Tom and I, just so the listeners know, we're both, I guess you could kind of call us serial entrepreneurs.
Tom Bergeron, right?
Yep, yeah, Tom Bergeron. And as always, I always have to say, no, not that Tom Bergeron. Somebody that I've worked with over the years in multiple startups that we've done together. And the reason I think it's important to go back in history, I'm literally looking at this piece of sticky note on the wall that we did 5 years ago that said an exclamation mark. And it's funny when you can go back and look at these things. We have to get companies involved, exclamation mark, or else this thing is just not going to work. So back when we started, we knew that that was an important element, but we didn't know exactly how we were going to get there. And we started way back with kind of the premise that you described about tremendous entrepreneurs and successful celebrities and sports stars, all that have learning differences, making it to the point where they could become successful and create great businesses. So the first program that we started was based on entrepreneurship and finding these talented individuals that had an inkling that they wanted to create a company, and we provided acceptance and a framework, as you put it, to guide them through the process of creating a business and teaching them just what they needed to know in order to accomplish that. So that's where we started. And, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to listen all the time and you have to be willing to make changes. We knew that the next step for us was likely to get some kind of corporate interest in just at least paying attention to what we were doing. And we created a pitch competition. And we like this one because it's, in order to qualify, you have to have a teammate that has a learning difference. If you have a bunch of people that don't have learning differences, they don't qualify. So we created this pitch competition with the goal being that we could show the rest of the world that these types of individuals, given the right supports and the right opportunities and the right training, can just demonstrate to the world that they can make businesses great just like anybody else. And Microsoft saw that and became one of our first sponsors. And one of the prizes that they gave was fantastic, which was at the end of our competition here in Amesbury, Massachusetts, where we're located, the top 4 teams were flown out to Microsoft's headquarters to pitch at their summit where they were talking about employing people with learning disabilities. And our teams went up and just absolutely killed it. People were initially skeptical about what they were going to see, thinking, oh, great, here's some folks with learning differences pitching businesses, and quite honestly, wondering if they needed to be polite. But when they were done, everyone was kind of sitting back in their chairs and going, whoa, those are impressive presentations. Those are impressive business ideas. In fact, the senior folks from Microsoft that were there came up later and said that they were blown away. That was an eye-opening experience for them. So we kind of had the pieces in place where people were paying attention to us. We had folks that were creating really cool business ideas. But we also learned along the way that parents were looking at their young kids and saying, that's great that Richard Branson has ADHD and dyslexia. I can't quite see my son or my daughter getting there. Do you guys have any programs where you can help them kind of find themselves and maybe before they go to college, figure out the direction that they want to go? Or if they haven't made it through college, where they can regroup and find themselves. And we created what we call our Gap Year program for that. So you can see, as time's gone on, we've evolved and changed and listened, but we still knew that we needed to get the companies more directly involved. And one of the things that we've noticed over the years is that the way this exclusion happens for this population is a lot of times in the electronic HR systems that are out there and the way companies interview, they give the hiring managers the option to tick the box whether or not a college degree is required for a position. And instinctually, they tick it. And what we're trying to point out to folks is that when you tick that box, you're missing some of the game-changing individuals that are out there that can affect their companies in a significant way. The folks in companies that I did that were the game changers, quite honestly, all had learning differences. So this exclusion continues to go on, and people don't even know they're doing it.
So what do you do when they come to you, people who could flourish and are being excluded from jobs, who have talent?
Well, the best way is probably to tell a story, and that is we had a young man that got his 4-year degree in computer science, and he got out into the workplace and discovered at that point that a 4-year degree in computer science means you sit in a cube for 10 or 12 hours a day writing code every day. And he realized that with his ADHD, that was just not a match. So a lot of people end up potentially getting the wrong degree or taking the wrong career path that doesn't really capitalize on their strengths. And he was really good with his hands. And what he wanted to do was do something with his hands, but also keep dabbling in computers. And mechanical engineering and working on something related to that was something that he was attracted to. And through our network of folks that we know here, we actually ended up getting him a position in a sustainable energy business that actually bolts on components to a truck that as it decelerates and as it brakes, it captures energy and charges batteries so that at night when they're sleeping overnight in their vehicles, they don't run their diesel generators overnight. And this guy's loving it. He's crawling around under trucks, working with his hands and manipulating things and then coming back in and writing a little bit of code each day. And he's really found his stride with that. So it's really about aligning people's interests with their strengths and then finding a willing employer to bring them on board. So that's an example of one of the things that we do in our career prep program that we have. But the twist that we're able to actually announce today for the first time is that we've been really reaching out hard to companies, challenging them on the fact that they're always doing internship programs. But by default, everyone says, oh, it's a college internship program. Well, they're always being reserved for people that are attending college. So we've challenged some companies out there to say, you're missing some of the best talent out there. If you have 200 internship spots and you're only recruiting from colleges, you're only getting a certain kind of person that's been able to make it through the college grind. Give us 2 or 3 spots in your internship program that we can recruit for and tell people what those positions will be so we get people that are excited by those positions. We'll get them trained up on how to fit into your corporation and into your company. We'll get them to learn using the tools that are available online and using other methods what they need to learn in order to be successful in that position. So if it's a big data financial position, they need to get skilled in databases and the cloud and internet and all the other things that that position would require. We'll train them up here before they take the internship and then give them a real internship with a real pathway to a real job. Many of the folks we see, as you kind of described earlier, end up pushing grocery carts. And meanwhile, they're dreaming about all the great things they could do if they were just given the opportunity while they're pushing grocery carts.
So have you found someone who will take these folks?
Yep, and we finally broke through with a company called Bentley Systems down in Exton, Pennsylvania. They're a multinational software company. They have offices in over 40 countries, and we're working with them now on defining what those positions are, but they've committed to us to actually give us those spots where people will go take these positions, perform for 4 or 6 months, with the idea being that if they do well, they can get a real job instead of a menial job that's below their brain grade, quite frankly. And what we want to do, and to make this really work, is get more and more companies doing this and stop thinking down the normal route that internships and co-ops are only for people that are in college at this point in time.
I'd like to pause the conversation here to talk for a moment about our wonderful sponsor, Landmark College. On the phone with me now is Ruth Wilmot of Landmark College, our wonderful sponsor in Putney, Vermont. Ruth works in the coaching services at Landmark College and is a professional certified coach who focuses on working with students who have executive function challenges. Thanks so much for joining me, Ruth.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, could you please tell us about the services that you offer while working with students who have executive function challenges at Landmark, which must be just about all of them?
Right. Well, we have a number of services for students. All of our students, of course, have an advisor that they meet with weekly, particularly during the first few semesters they're here. And they also have other resources that are more content-specific, such as our Drake Center, where they can get help with reading and writing and specific coursework like science, math, business, and computer science. But for those students with executive functioning challenges, they generally gravitate towards working with our coaching services that I'm pleased to be part of. Students choose to engage with a coach on a weekly basis for a confidential meeting where they set their own goals for particular things they'd like to work on. And as you can imagine, most of those are the types of things that are particularly challenging to students with executive functioning issues. I would say that the top one that I tend to find myself working with are students who say they understand the assignment, they really want to get it done, but they have a very, very challenging time getting themselves started. As you know, we refer to that as activation, and it's kind of the top one thing that I find students really appreciate support from through our coaching services.
And in a nutshell, how do you help someone get started?
Well, my first question often is both to ask what's important to them about this whole process, and secondly, to move to what ideas do they have already about what they might do differently. So I always begin with what they know about themselves. I consider them an expert on their brain. And obviously, I'm there to offer suggestions if they're stumped. And, oftentimes it's as simple as something like determining that they're going to work much better if they've made a commitment to another person. Whether it's an appointment or committing to a friend to go to the library, that if another person is involved, that often is a strength for them, and they can capitalize on that and be sure to actually get to that place and begin that project.
That's so interesting. So it isn't necessarily the nuts and bolts technique as much as the connection, the teamwork that makes a difference.
Exactly. If that's a strength, I often ask a student, are you pretty good at getting to classes and appointments? And more often than not, they'll say, oh, that's easy. So we can take that strength and use it to their advantage.
How about one sentence on another big one, procrastination?
Well, procrastination kind of goes along with that, I think. Okay. Having a plan that is going to help you get started. I think it's all about determining the tiniest small first step that you're willing to take. And I feel like procrastination benefits from that momentum one gets from just that one successful task, which might be as simple as reading the directions for the assignment and discovering that it's maybe not as complicated as you thought and feeling more motivated to get started.
So you're building on that first success.
Exactly. And once you've got a success, then you tend to be more inclined to go for something else. And it's really critical that it not be, I'm going to sit down and write my 10-page paper, but I'm going to open up my laptop and I'm going to start a new document and name and label it and save it.
So just that will get you going.
Sometimes that one small step gets someone unstuck. And frequently that's something I actually will do with a student in a coaching session, ask if they think that would be helpful, and they say, oh, sure. And the next thing I know, they're feeling much more inclined to keep going with that. Maybe they just move out into the hallway to continue, or they make a plan to start up again that afternoon or that evening.
Boy, it just rings so true. They're so lucky to be there, Ruth, to be at Landmark College. Honest to goodness, to have a resource like you and Landmark College, it's paradise for these kids who have these learning issues.
I think it can be, and it's a joy for me to be a witness to the kind of positive change that can happen with just a few new strategies and support, to see really bright and intelligent students with wonderful things to offer the world if they can just find the means to harness that energy and to cope with the challenges that they have with the particular brain that they're working with.
Yep, they go from being lost to being found.
Exactly. Yeah. And my colleagues and I get to be part of all of that, which is really fun.
Yep. Boy, good for you. You're really delivering new life. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on Distraction today.
You're very welcome.
For the listeners to learn more about the coaching services offered at Landmark College in Putney, Vermont, or to schedule a campus visit, which they will happily do, go to lcdistraction.org. This really is an incredible place. It's like a little hidden treasure up in Putney, Vermont, with treasure hunters to guide you, like the inimitable Ruth Wilmot. Thank you so much, Ruth, for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks a million. Take care.
Bye.
Okay, now let's get back to the show. Just think of how many really successful people do not have a college degree. Now, obviously, we're not recommending people don't go to college, but we are saying there are some people who simply can't do college, but who can contribute big time to the world, and whose brains are able to do remarkable stuff. They just can't do some of the stuff that's required in college. And these are the folks that you guys are training.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at what we're trying to do with the various programs as they've evolved, it depends on where you are and what your credentials are as to where you can fit into our programs. So we've had folks come through our programs that are graduates of Harvard and MIT and other great universities. Yet they still are struggling with their business idea or how to fit into the workplace. So we are trying to find solutions for everybody, depending on where they are in their life. If they're 18 and looking to go to college, but they don't know exactly what they want to do and which college is the right one for them, and how to get academic supports on their own without support from their friends and family and IEPs in high school. From 18 years old to where they're kind of looking at the world for the first time, to people that are maybe in their 40s and are stuck in the wrong career and just looking to make a shift. So we're trying to provide options for folks at various, stages in their life and in various situations. And I think we've kind of rounded it out with this career program, in that we can finally see a way where companies will start partnering with us, starting to see the value of these individuals, college degree or not, and want to hire more and more of them. And we think it's, as you know, we've talked about this forever, it's a great disservice for some of these young folks and, older folks to be stuck at home in the basement in unemployment lines. They have so much more talent than that. And we think that when we place these folks, they're probably going to outperform the other people that are in those internship programs, because they're there to get a job at that company, and they've been working hard to get there.
So obviously Bentley Systems agrees with you.
Absolutely.
And they're going to take how many kids?
Right now we're aiming for 3, but that number could go up if we can find the right folks for positions there. Many of the larger companies we found have, they bring in 200, 300, 400 internships into their companies each year. And we're just looking to kind of prove the point first. We like taking a small bite first.
Of course.
To prove that we can do it. And then once we prove it, then we'll try to go bigger.
And what will you do to get them ready to go to Bentley Systems?
Yeah, so they'll come here in September. We're recruiting for teams now. They'll come here in September and be part of our, main programs where we cover a lot of different things, including life skills and how to operate in a corporate environment. One of the things that you can't do in some of these companies is allowed here, and that is, when we're around a table talking about a topic, spinning in your chair or bouncing on a ball. That can be distracting, so we'll teach them, coping mechanisms on how to do that. The other thing that we've discovered with folks here is that taking notes is not necessarily one of their strengths, and we'll be coaching them on techniques that they can use to capture information, at meetings and make sure that they stay on time and develop some time management habits that really work for themselves. And that's kind of the first stage of the program, which is about a 4-month process. The second stage will be really getting them ramped up using all the tools that are out there on whatever the position is going to be. So we'll work with the companies and find out, what software they use, for example, and what key skills that somebody needs to develop, and put a structure around them to learn just enough to be successful in that particular position, so that when they finally take on the role, they're ready to hit the ground running.
So if someone's listening to this podcast and you know someone with ADHD who doesn't have a college degree, it would be really good to apply to Inventive Labs and for the fall and get ready and get one of those internships at Bentley Systems.
Yep, and we hope to add more. If there are any listeners out there, I'm sure there are, that work for larger companies, please make an introduction to the HR staff there, and we'd love to explain to them what we're trying to accomplish and show them what our program could look like for them. And it's a hard thing for them to say no to, because I think the story is very compelling. So if there's anyone out there that thinks they can put us in touch with somebody that could help us with that would be great. Or better yet, if you're an HR professional and you can do it yourself, just give us a call and we can walk you through that.
Now, how do they reach you, Rick?
So there's a number of ways. Our website has all of our contact information, and it's a pretty rich content right now on the website. It's at Inventive Labs, all one word, INVENTIVE LABS, like laboratory. So Inventive Labs with an S.org, O-R-G. So you can go to that website, and in the contact section you can find us. But pick up the phone. We love taking phone calls too. So 978-572-0350 is where we can be reached. And again, it's 978-572-0350.
Really, if you run a business, work in HR for a business, it's a great way to bring in your next genius, your next creative thinker, and the type who can't do college but will turn your company around. And you have the luxury of having Rick and his partner Tom and their marvelous magical land up there in Amesbury. Train him, get him ready to come to you and do an internship and give you the idea you've been looking for such a long time. I mean, this really is a golden opportunity. I can't tell you how lucky you'll be if you offer up this possibility, or at least go talk to Rick and Tom and inventivelabs.org. Drive up to Amesbury, look at this magical kingdom he's created. These people, if you are in the world of business, you know what I'm talking about. These people who on the surface look like misfits or strange ducks, they're the people who started Google, who started Silicon Valley, who now populate Kendall Square in Cambridge, who are the geeks, the visionaries, the discoverers. They don't wear suits and ties and bow ties and shine shoes, but they sure do change the world. They sure do come up with the new ideas. They are not cut out of the cookie cutter, but they will give you the bright new idea you've been looking for so long. And Rick will polish them up enough so that they won't embarrass you, but they will come in and deliver you ideas that you just, you can't buy them. That's the great thing about ADHD. You can't buy and you can't teach what they've got to offer. You just can't order it up. Creativity doesn't come on demand. You can't say, well, it's 10 o'clock, now it's our idea time, please produce. And that's just not the way it works. It's impulsive, spontaneous, comes on demand, and that's what Inventive Labs, it's like an incubator. And Rick and Tom are working with these men and women to get them ready to be able to function well enough in society, well enough in organizations, to come in and offer you the fruits of their brains, the fruits of their minds. Rick, do you have any other ideas, thoughts, questions, suggestions to add?
Well, you've obviously summed it up very nicely, as you always do. I would say that one thing we've heard over and over from parents that have reached out to us is that their son or daughter is so brilliant and so outgoing and so energetic and so enthusiastic, and he or she is just stuck. Nobody will give them a job. They can't get back into college, or they won't go to college, and there has to be a better option for them. So that's really what's driven us to create this program from the beginning. And it's the opportunity, I think, for everybody to, if they can join us and we can work together with them, it's their opportunity to get the structure they need, the training they need to actually get a job that really aligns with their strengths and that they deserve. And that's what this is all about, and that's why we do what we do. As you said, it's hard work, but it's very rewarding to see the changes, and that's why we love doing it. Well,
I'm proud to be associated with you and Inventive Labs. It's, I think, the kind of operation you run is way ahead of its time, and will be replicated around the country. I think it's just a marvelous harbinger of things to come, because these young people are tremendous resources that are largely being overlooked and wasted. And thanks to you and Tom, and I know it hasn't been easy. You guys have really stuck by your vision and really not given up on your vision, which I admire tremendously.
Well, without your support and guidance, Ned, along the way, and your pep talks, quite honestly, we might not have gotten to where we are right now, but I think we've turned the corner.
Yeah.
And I think we've rounded out our program, and it's now time to really make this thing take off, and that's where we want to go next.
Well, you certainly should, and the whole world will benefit from it. Rick Fiery and Inventive Labs, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell with thanks to Rick and Inventive Labs for Distraction. Again, thanks so much to Rick Fiery. What he does up there in Amesbury, what he and Tom do with Tom Bergeron, not that Tom Bergeron, the other Tom Bergeron, with Inventive Labs is truly innovative, groundbreaking, and I just can't say enough about it. If you'd like to learn more about the internship program through Inventive Labs, just go to their website, inventivelabs.org, inventivelabs.org. And if you like what you're hearing here, take a moment to go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Distraction. Please do it because it helps us, and we truly appreciate it. We've been growing, but we'd like to grow faster and more, and the only way we can do that is with your help. Your reviews means the world to us, because we're not a slick operation. We're a little mom and pop operation, and we really depend upon it. And we're all about connection. We're all about your help. And I'm not a hard driving, lean and hungry master marketer. You know, I'm a guy who has a practice and sees patients, and, you know, I do this in my spare time and really need your help. And I have a passion for it. I really want to spread the word about connection, about ADHD, about erasing stigma, about promoting things like Inventive Labs, and the only way we can really spread that word is by growing the reach of this podcast, and the only way we can do that is with your support. So if you like it and you believe in it, please take a few moments and go and rate and review our podcast, Distraction. Just go to Apple Podcasts. Okay, Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcast for curious people. Our audio engineers are Pat Keogh and Scott Person, and this episode was produced by Christina Torres and Sarah Gurton.